Who Goes There? Chapter 7 by John Campbell. Dr. Copper rose wearily from the bunk and washed the hypodermic carefully. The little tinkles it made seemed loud in the packed room. Now that Blair's gurgling laughter had finally quieted, Copper looked towards Gary and shook his head slowly. Hopeless, I'm afraid. I don't think we can ever convince him the thing is dead now. Norris laughed uncertainly. I'm not sure you can convince me. Oh, damn you, MacReady. MacReady? Commander Gary turned to look from Norris to MacReady curiously. The nightmares, Norris explained. He had a theory about the nightmares we had at the second station after finding the thing. And that was? Gary looked at MacReady levelly. Norris answered for him, jerkily, unsteadily. That the creature wasn't dead. Had a sort of enormously slowed existence, an existence that permitted it, nonetheless, to be vaguely aware of the passing of time, of our coming after endless years. I had a dream it could imitate things. Well, Copper grunted, it can. Don't be an ass, Norris snapped. That's not what's bothering me. In the dream, it could read minds, read thoughts and ideas and mannerisms. What's so bad about that? It seems to be worrying you more than the thought of the joy we're going to have with a madman in an Arctic camp. Copper nodded towards Blair's sleeping form. MacReady shook his great head slowly. You know that Conant is Conant, because he's not merely looks like Conant, which we're beginning to believe that beast might be able to do, but he thinks like Conant and talks like Conant, moves himself around as Conant does. That takes more than merely a body that looks like him. That takes Conant's own minds and thoughts and mannerisms. Therefore, though you know that the thing might make itself look like Conant, you aren't much bothered because you know it has a mind from another world, a totally inhuman mind that couldn't possibly react and think and talk like the man we know, and do it so well as to fool us for a moment. The idea of the creature imitating one of us is fascinating, but unreal because it's too completely inhuman to deceive us. It doesn't have a human mind. As I said before, Norris repeated, looking steadily at MacReady, you can say the damnedest things at the damnedest times. Will you be so good as to finish that thought one way or the other? Kiner, the scar-faced expedition cook, had been standing near Conant. Suddenly he moved down the length of the crowded room towards his familiar galley. He shook the ashes from the galley stove noisily. It would do no good, said Dr. Copper, softly, as though thinking aloud, to merely look like something it was trying to imitate. It would have to understand its feelings, its reactions. It is unhuman. It has powers of imitation beyond any concept of man. A good actor, by training himself, can imitate another man's mannerisms well enough to fool most people. Of course, no actor could imitate so perfectly as to deceive men who've been living with the imitated one in the complete lack of privacy of an Antarctic camp. That would take a superhuman skill. Oh, you've got the bug too, Norris cursed softly. Conant, standing alone at one end of the room, looked about him wildly, his face white. A gentle eddying of the man had crowded them slowly down towards the other end of the room so that he stood quietly alone. My God, will you two Jeremiahs shut up? Conant's voice shook. What am I, some kind of microscopic specimen you're dissecting? Some unpleasant worm you're discussing in third person? MacReady looked up at him. Slowly twisting hand stopped for a moment. Having a lovely time. Wish you were here. Signed, everybody. Conant, if you think you're having a hell of a time, just move over to the other end for a while. You've got one thing we haven't. You know what the answer is. I'll tell you this. Right now, you're the most feared and respected man in Big Magnet. Lord, I wish I could see your eyes, Conant gasped. Stop staring, will you? What the hell are you going to do? Have you any suggestions, Dr. Copper? Commander Gary asked steadily. The present situation is impossible. Oh, is it? Conant snapped. Come over here and look at that crowd. By heaven, they look exactly like that gang of huskies around the corridor bend. Banning, will you stop hefting that damned ice pick? The coppery blade rang on the floor as the aviation mechanic nervously dropped it. He bent over and picked it up instantly, hefting it slowly, turning it in his hands, his brown eyes moving jerkily about the room. Copper sat down on the bunk beside Blair. The wood creaked noisily in the room. Far down a corridor, a dog yelped in pain, and the dog's driver's tense voice floated softly back. Microscopic examination, said the doctor thoughtfully, would be useless, as Blair pointed out. Considerable time has passed. However, the serum tests would be definitive. Serum tests? What do you mean exactly? Commander Gary asked. If I had a rabbit that had been injected with human blood, a poison to rabbits, of course, as the blood of any animal save that of another rabbit, and the injections continued in increasing doses for some time, the rabbit would be human immune. If a small amount of its blood were drawn off, allowed to separate in a test tube, and to the clear serum a bit of human blood was added, there would be a visible reaction, proving the blood was human. If a cow or dog's blood were added, or any protein material other than that one thing, human blood, no reaction would take place. That would prove definitively. Can you suggest where I might catch a rabbit for you, Doc? Norris asked. That is, nearer than Australia. We don't want to waste time going that far. I know there aren't any rabbits in Antarctica, Copper nodded. But that is simply the usual animal. Any animal except man will do. A dog, for instance. But it'll take several days, and due to the greater size of the animal, considerable blood. 2 of us will have to contribute. Would I do? Gary asked. That will make 2. I'll get to work on it right away. What about Conant in the meantime? Kiner demanded. I'm going out that door and heading off for the Ross Sea before I cook for him. He may be human, Cooper started. Conant burst out in a flood of curses. Human? Maybe human, you damn sawbones! What the hell do you think I am? A monster, Copper snapped sharply. Now shut up and listen. Conant's face drained of color, and he sat down heavily as the indictment was put in words. Unless we know, you know as well as we do, that we have reason to question the fact, and only you know how that question is to be answered. Until we know, you know as well as we do, that we have no reason to question the fact, and only you know how that question is to be answered. We may reasonably be expected to lock you up. If you are inhuman, you're a lot more dangerous than poor Blair there, and I'm going to see that he's locked up thoroughly. I expect that his next stage will be a violent desire to kill you, all the dogs, and probably all of us. When he wakes, he'll be convinced we're all inhuman, and nothing on the planet will change his conviction. It would be kinder to let him die, but we can't do that, of course. He's going in one shack, and he can stay in Cosmos House with your cosmic ray apparatus, which is about what you'd do anyway. I've got to fix up a couple of dogs. Conant nodded bitterly. I'm human. Hurry that test. Your eyes, Lord, I wish you could see your eyes staring. Commander Gary watched anxiously as Clark, the dog handler, held the big brown Alaskan husky while Copper, being the injection treatment. The dog was not anxious to cooperate. The needle was painful, and already he'd experienced considerable needlework that morning. 5 stitches held closed, a slash that ran from his shoulder across the ribs halfway down his body. One long fang was broken off. The missing part was to be found half buried in the shoulder bone of the monstrous thing on the table in the ad building. How long will that take? Gary asked, pressing his arm gently. It was sore from the prick of the needle Dr. Copper had used to withdraw blood. Copper shrugged. I don't know. To be frank, I know the general method. I've used it on rabbits, but I haven't experimented with dogs. They're big, clumsy animals to work with. Naturally, rabbits are preferable and serve ordinarily. In civilized places, you can buy a stock of human immune rabbits from suppliers. and not many investigators take the trouble to prepare their own. What do they want with them back there? Clark asked. Criminology is one large field. A says he didn't murder B, but the blood on his shirt came from killing a chicken. The state makes a test, then it's up to A to explain how it is the blood reacts on human immune rabbits, but not on chicken immunes. What are we going to do with Blair in the meantime? Gary asked wearily. It's all right to let him sleep where he is for a while, but when he wakes up... Barkley and Benning are fitting some bolts on the door of Cosmo's house. Copper replied grimly. Contin's acting like a gentleman. I think perhaps the way the other men look at him make him rather want privacy. Lord knows, heretofore we've all of us individually prayed for a little privacy. Clark laughed bitterly. Not any more, thank you. The more the merrier. Blair, Copper went on, we'll also have to have privacy and locks. He's going to have a pretty definite plan in mind when he wakes up. Ever hear the old story of how to stop hoof and mouth disease in cattle? If there isn't any hoof and mouth disease, there won't be any hoof and mouth disease, Copper explained. You get rid of it by killing every animal that exhibits it, and every animal that's been near the diseased animal. Blair's a biologist and knows that story. He's afraid of this thing we loosed. The answer is probably pretty clear in his mind now. Kill everybody and everything in this camp before a gull or a wandering albatross comes in with the spring, chances out this way, and catches the disease. Clark's lips curled into a twisted grin. Sounds logical to me. If things get too bad, maybe we'd better let Blair get loose. It would save us committing suicide. We might also make something of a vow that if things get bad, we see that it doesn't happen. Copper laughed softly. The last man alive in Big Magnet wouldn't be a man, he pointed out. Someone's got to kill those creatures that don't desire to kill themselves, you know. We don't have enough thermite to do it all at once, and the decanite explosive won't help much. I have an idea that even small pieces of one of those beings would be self-sufficient. If, said Gary thoughtfully, they can modify their protoplasm at will, won't they simply modify themselves to birds and fly away? They can read all about birds and imitate their structure without ever meeting them, or imitating, perhaps, birds of their home planet. Copper shook his head and helped Clark to free the dog. Man studied birds for centuries, trying to learn how to make a machine to fly like them. He never did do the trick. His final success when he broke away entirely and tried new methods. Knowing the general idea and knowing the detailed structure of wing and bone and nerve and tissue is something far, far different. And as for the otherworld birds, perhaps, in fact, very probably, the atmospheric conditions here are so vastly different that their birds couldn't fly. Perhaps even the being came from a planet like Mars with such a thin atmosphere that there were no birds. Even the being came from a planet. Perhaps even the being came from a planet like Mars with such a thin atmosphere that there were no birds. Barkley came into the building, trailing a length of airplane control cable. It's finished, Doc. Cosmo House can't be opened from the inside. Now where do we put Blair? Copper looked towards Gary. There wasn't any biology building. I don't know where we can isolate him. How about East Cache? Gary said, after a moment's thought. Will Blair be able to look after himself or need attention? He'll be capable enough. We'll be the ones to watch out, Copper assured him grimly. Take a stove, a couple of bags of coal, necessary supplies, and a few tools to fix it up. Nobody's been out there since last fall, have they? Gary shook his head. If he gets noisy, I thought that might be a good idea. Barkley hefted the tools he was carrying and looked up at Gary. If the muttering he's doing now is any sign, he's going to sing away the night hours, and we won't like his song. What's he saying? Copper asked. Barkley shook his head. I don't care to listen much. You can if you want to, but I gather that the blasted idiot had all the dreams McCready had and a few more. He slept beside the thing when we stopped on the trail coming in from the secondary magnetite, remember? He dreamt the thing was alive, and dreamt more details, and damn his soul, knew it wasn't all dreams, or had reason to. He knew it had telepathic powers that were stirring vaguely, and that it could not only read minds, but project thoughts. They weren't dreams, you see. They were stray thoughts that the thing was broadcasting, the way Blair's broadcasting his thoughts now, the sort of telepathic muttering in its sleep. That's why he knew so much about its powers. I guess you and I, Doc, weren't so sensitive, if you want to believe in telepathy. I have to, Copper sighed. Dr. Rhine of Duke University has shown that it exists, shown that some are much more sensitive than others. Well, if you want to learn a lot of details, go listen in on Blair's broadcast. He's driven most of the boys out of the ad building. Kiner's rattling pans like coal going down a chute. When he can't rattle a pan, he shakes ashes. By the way, Commander, what are we going to do this spring now that the planes are out of it? Gary sighed. I'm afraid our expedition is going to be a loss. We cannot divide our strength now. It won't be a loss if we continue to live and come out of this, Copper promised himself. The find we've made, if we can get it under control, is important enough. The cosmic ray data, magnetic work, and atmospheric work won't be greatly hindered. Gary laughed mirthlessly. I was just thinking of the radio broadcasts, telling half the world about the wonderful results of our exploration flights, trying to fool men like Bird and Ellsworth back home that they were doing something. Copper nodded gravely. They'll know something's wrong, but men like that have judgment enough to know we wouldn't do tricks without some sort of reason. We will wait for our return to judge us. I think it comes to this. Men who know enough to recognize our deception will wait for our return. Men who haven't discretion and faith enough to wait will not have the experience to detect any fraud. We know enough of the conditions here to put through a good bluff. Just so they don't send rescue expeditions, Gary prayed. If we're ready to come out, we'll have to send word to Captain Forsyth to bring a stock of magnetos with him when he comes down. But never mind that. You mean if we don't come out? Asked Barclay. I was wondering if a nice running account of an eruption or an earthquake via radio with a swell wind-up, using a stick of decanite under the microphone would help. Nothing, of course, will entirely keep people out. One of those swell, melodramatic, last man alive scenes might make 'em go easy, though. Gary smiled with genuine humor. Is everybody in camp trying to figure that out, too? Copper laughed. What do you think, Gary? We're confident we can win out, but not too easy about it, I guess. Clark grinned up from the dog he was petting into calmness. Confident, did you say, Doc? So quoth this raven. All my love to you guys. I hope you have a marvelous rest of your week. Leave me a comment, say hi. I always love to talk to you guys. It means the world. I don't care if I have 1 million subscribers and followers. I really enjoy the small community that you guys have brought to my channel and the personal touch. So if you want to talk with me, just leave a comment and have a great day, my darlings.